What's up guys, it's TyranitarTube and it's time to look at more Pokemon conspiracies that may be real. We had a lot of fun with some of these last time, let's keep going. Let me start off with the classic, the Twin Tower reincarnations. The story in Gen 2 is that there was this tower called the Brass Tower and it burned down 150 years ago. And that when Ho-Oh that day came to check out the burned tower, it saw these 3 dead Pokemon and resurrected them as Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. What's cool is that's not even the conspiracy, that's facts. Pokemon had some fun back in the day. That's the actual backstory to Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. The way this theory goes says that Raikou, Entei, and Suicune don't actually exist. It was a Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon that had died, that Ho-Oh resurrected into these super forms, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Which would mean that when you look at these 3 dudes, they're secretly Eevee inside. The reason this theory was popular is because they are the 3 original evolutions perfectly, and when you put the designs near each other and squint, you can kind of see it. However, as the days have gone by, I've started to believe this theory less and less, just because when you unsquint, well, it does look like if you put some primal beast into Jolteon, it could turn into Raikou, and the same for the other 2, and it makes the legendary beasts. I suppose it just makes the beasts not as legendary if they're just Eevee inside. Like, you see the idea you get from Entei in the Pokemon movie, he is this actual mystical Pokemon. It just seems like a happy coincidence that they parallel like that. But not mentioned here, a few years ago, there was something interesting that happened. The legendary beasts beta designs were leaked in an early copy of Gold and Silver, where they don't look like the same legendary beasts anymore. They have a first iteration design. So here is Raikou, who's black with spiky hair, kind of like the Jolteon spikes. Entei has a lot less going on. It looks much more like Flareon. And then Suicune, who's one of my favorite designs for some reason, it literally looks like Vaporeon. These 3 designs have less of a myth flair to them, and since it brings them down a little, it seems more believable if you were to say these 3 Pokemon are resurrected Ho-Oh enhanced versions of Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon. And especially when you look at their back sprites, there's the first Raikou's back sprite, the first Entei's back sprite, and the first Suicune's back sprite. A lot of people have made cool fan art. Check out this one by Swiftalu. They've been normalized. They look freaking like Eevee. It's insane. Especially this art right here where it shows them younger. You would imagine that they don't just resurrect into these beefy 3 legendary dog forms. I know they're beasts. I'll call them dogs. You would imagine when they're resurrected, they first had this small form, pretty much the same size as a Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon. They just ran around for 150 years and grew. Until these beta designs came out, I would have said Nosable to this idea. But because you never know what Game Freak is thinking, especially nowadays, they'll change their mind about things. I feel like if you sat down with Game Freak like a year before Gold and Silver came out, while they were still developing it, there's a good chance one of their ideas when they made this backstory to Raikou, Entei, and Suicune is that they are resurrections of 3 tragically dead evolutions. It's tinfoil hatty, but I'll give it possible. A Silph co-worker was going to blow herself up and take some Team Rocket members with her. I can't believe this. I was just playing through Pokemon Red and found a Silph co-worker hiding in a small room. When you talk to her, she panics at first, but then realizes you aren't with Team Rocket. She then gives you the TM for self-destruct. If I can find the video, I'll put it up on screen. My thought, she had or wanted to get a Pokemon primed and ready to go, just in case things went south. I don't know if this was out of desperation or loyalty to the company, but she wasn't going down without taking out a bad guy or 2. To stretch things even further, she was in a small room with equipment lined up against the wall. A server room perhaps? Was she trying to keep information away from Team Rocket? So Game Freak had a different tone in their first few games. They didn't know their direction yet, so they would do serious things sometimes. And for sure, they hide messages, especially in the first 2 games. They might have dropped the secret messages later on, but they like to have underlying things going on in the first few games. You gotta think, Game Freak, by the time they're finished programming this, are aware they gave her self-destruct. Because especially it shows her panicked and on edge and holding on to self-destruct probably in her hands if she just gives it to you that quickly. It's not totally impossible. They may not have shown Team Rocket like killing her stuff in the first few games, but I imagine they were pretty scary. Okay, here is another classic theory. All of Psychic's weaknesses are common fears. So this theory pretty much states that Psychic types in Pokemon are weak to bug types, dark types, and ghost types, which are common fears for humans. They're grossed out by bugs. We're giants compared to like a spider or a tiny ant, but some people will run away in fear. Humans are scared of the dark or the unknown. They're scared to go into uncertain territory, and they're also scared of ghosts. 3 common human fears are turned into Psychic's weaknesses. If you ask me, this theory is absolutely true, except I've done some thinking ever since I first heard this theory. Aren't humans afraid of like drowning, of the water, of fire, burning alive? Wouldn't a few more of these types work as common fears? I suppose those are lesser fears. Humans aren't afraid of water, they're afraid of a lot of water. And humans aren't afraid of a little heat, they're afraid of a fire. I'm gonna give this possible. Generation 9 will feature the Moon Dayo mentioned in Kalos. X and Y featured mega evolutions in Anastar City, and there was this big reddish crystalline structure, the Anastar City sundial, that connects the mega evolution. What's interesting is that one NPC said something along the lines of, "Did you know there are moondials too?" Now it could just be a line for fun that they threw in the game, but since they talk about a moondial, Pokemon fans look around to see what it could mean or where it could be. Because Kalos is near where the Spain region is, people think maybe that's where the moondial is. You would think the moondial would be somewhere close. It's closer than like Alola is, which is all the way in Hawaii. So it makes sense. The moondial is just in the country next over. She asks you, "Hey, did you hear of it?" Now, going into some riddle territory, Cubone mentioned the gimmick in Gen 9 kind of has a concept like Mega Evolution, so we gotta wait and see. It does have a possibility, but there's no possible here. You just gotta wait and see. But because Game Freak has a tendency to just forget a lot of the things they do, I would say it's more unlikely than likely. Though it would make me really happy if it was true, because you can't just mention the Moondial in the Iberian region without some talk about Kalos, even if it's just 1 or 2 pieces of dialogue. And you know I'm all up for connecting the regions. Cubone isn't a baby Kangaskhan, but it's Predator. This theory is meant to throw a spin on our theory that Cubones are crying little children that miss their mother. Apparently, boomerangs have been historically used for hunting, and one of the animals hunted were kangaroos. You know, Game Freak likes to study sometimes. It just so happens Cubones have a signature move called Bonemerang, where it throws its bone like a boomerang. So little Cubone, who will you hunt today with your boomerang? Who you've always hunted? The Kangaskhan. Maybe we've completely been fooled by Cubone. You gotta think, sometimes these dex entries can be wrong, like the Drifloon entry. While I guess they do still take kids away, they're not as cold-hearted. Some of them just want to play. The best iteration of this theory is that Cubones kill Kangaskhan's, then wear its skulls for protections, and then evolve into a marowak. You can't do that, Cubone. When they're crying, it could be fake tears, crocodile tears. They could be this cute Pokemon trying to gain the trust of humans. I mean, it's kind of scary for Alolan Marowak because they have like the spirit of the Kangaskhan with them. I think this would make a really cool spin on Cubone if they had this savage culture of killing Kangaskhan's like a tribe, wearing their skulls as masks and dancing around a fire. But then out in the normal world, we think they're these precious little crying babies. Oh, I want to believe this theory, but I think possible. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I have a bit of a cheat code into Game Freak's mind. When that early gold and silver copy leaked, there was like an alternate Cubone evolution where it had a pouch and was like a kangaroo itself. Oh, here we go. So in the beta, an evolution to Marowak was found where it had a little pouch for a baby in it. You can't tell in the back sprite if the baby has a skull, but it looks more like an actual Kangaskhan baby without the mask. Here's how Kangaskhan looks like in the Gen 2 games. Parent Pokemon. The female raises its offspring in its pouch. And this is Guardia. I don't know if the name is confirmed, but it was supposed to be Marowak's evolution, and it has a baby Cubone in its pouch. If anyone dares to harm a child, it will know something. Now, you never know. Maybe Guardia is just taking care of the baby Kangaskhan's. Maybe Guardia and Kangaskhan are like cousin species. So maybe there's one line of Kangaskhan's where the mother takes care of the baby, and it's this loving relationship that carries through generation. And there's another line where the baby loses its mother, and it has this sad story where it grows up to be this masked Kangaskhan and goes looking for abandoned Cubones or orphan Cubones and takes them in. So that Cubone in its pouch wouldn't be its own baby. but it would be because of what it experienced growing up. It'd be taking care of other Cubones. Asaka, you should have done that, Masuda. This story is great. Trust me, I love. Oh man, I realized the Pokemon in the Ghost Tower is even a Marowak. Maybe they're thinking something there. Even Marowak nowadays starts to feel a bit unevolved. Man, I would love if that evolution became real. I want it to be real, but I'm gonna say Nosable. Alright, I'm gonna call it quits here. Go on and shank that like button. I got a couple more of these, so we'll do them. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.